All right, I think we are live. Hey everyone, Mike here from BinyaOutDoors. Welcome to a special edition live. This is my first official special guest video. I actually brought on Nate Chagnon, who is a tournament fisherman from the Northeast. I wanted to just kind of talk fishing in general with him. We don't have a specific topic. We're just going to basically sit here, talk about fishing. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. Nate, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Nate Chagnon. I am a kayak tournament angler out of Taunton, Massachusetts. Right now, I fish KBF. I've done a couple of the Hobie Bass Opens, elite kayak fishing, um, and that's basically it for now. And then I, travel and do the shows with Fresh Baits. So that's another thing,
So,
kind of going in the fishing community. But
right. Now, how did the fresh baits thing happen? Like, I've heard of those guys, but is that something that you just kind of stumbled into it, or?
so it's actually a really cool story. I actually knew them before Fresh Baits was kind of ever a thing. They
Okay.
uh, they started as a YouTube channel called Get Bent TV, and both of the guys were out of Worcester, Mass. And at the time, I was living on the Worcester Millbury line, and just started tournaments and reached out to him and was like, "Hey, I just want to wear Get Ben at the tournaments and stuff like that." And we wound up communicating, and then when Fresh Baits came out, they dropped that original Scorpion. I had known the guys, and they gave me some, and I fell in love with that Scorpion. I mean, I had it on Alabama. I had it on my first online win, the Catch 'em All Brawl. I had it on. I fell in love with it, and the rest was history. They kind of brought me on as the first pro staff, and we ran with it. They started making the worms, the Hellamites, the beetles, and I mean, they're basically all I throw now. I keep for soft plastics. Basically, the only other thing I'm throwing is a Zoom Fluke as a trailer.
Yeah.
But besides that, everything else is all fresh baits now, and been with them for 3-4 years now. So
Nice. It's funny. So that's actually a question that I like to ask people, not even necessarily on lives, but have you ever actually fished a fluke like you're supposed to fish a fluke? Because most people I know end up just using it as a swim jig trailer or a chatterbait trailer or
I literally only throw them on spinner baits,
yeah,
and
like
that's
I don't think I've ever
it.
actually fished it like it's supposed to be fished. Like I use it a lot of times on chatterbaits because that little tail doesn't screw with the blade.
hmm
So it keeps it from like rolling as much. Like a boot tail, unless you turn it upside down, sometimes it'll cause it to roll and it will like come out of sync. So a lot of
So
times I'll throw a fluke on that. But
what I do is actually the fresh bait scorpion. If you take the tail and you rip it off the last tail segment, it threads on to the chatterbait perfect if you pop it right out of the head.
okay,
But what happens is the 8 legs of the scorpion stick out the side of that skirt, and it actually catches the vibration of the blade.
oh, okay,
And dude, you can almost feel it like double
it
up in the tip
adds
of
more
your
vibration.
Yep.
So it really triggers their lateral line even more because it makes it more. I'm not gonna lie, I hadn't heard of them before, and I looked them up, and I was like, I'll admit I was a little skeptical because I'm like scorpion. I'm in Vermont, like
Yep.
my fish have never seen a scorpion, but kind of looks like a craw too. So it's kind of like it has that same profile.
So my whole spiel I give at the whole trade shows, because I mean, you get people that walk by and they're like, "Dude,
Yeah, what the hell
a
is this thing?
scorpion?"
Yeah,
I'm never gonna argue the fact that you are gonna see a scorpion in water, but the
right.
way uh the way they recommend rigging it on the owner stand up jig is the tail is free and the weight is just under the tail,
Okay,
almost in the ass of the bait, kind of.
right.
And what happens every time you jig it, that tail flips forward. And
Okay.
if you've ever seen a crawfish run, it'll flap its tail to propel back,
Right.
and then all our baits float. So when it lands, the claws come up. It's
Bring it
more of a
out.
crawfish mold than really any other crawfish
Right.
mold I've
That's
ever
true.
seen.
I could definitely see that. Yeah, it's there. I've seen a lot of random baits out on the market, but like I was looking at their stuff and I was like, yeah, nobody's got these mold. Like
No.
nobody does that. Everybody does the standard, rage craw mold, and
Yep.
they do the standard Senko, and they do the standard Ned rig, but they definitely have some like unique stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
Is Fresh Baits your only sponsor, or do you have other ones as well?
Uh, Hookset Hoodlums.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
on Team Hookset, and then I'm also Dakota Lithium Pro Staff. So
Nice.
got
Dude, I
them.
went with Z Pro because I was actually originally supposed to do Slay Nation tournament. So I was supposed to actually be
Mhm.
running a trail here in Vermont, but I had like two people signed up and no one was interested, and it was getting to the point where I was getting too busy with YouTube and other stuff. So I ended up reaching out to Frankie and was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna do it, but I got a deal through Z Pro." But dude, it's amazing. Lithium batteries make a huge difference for kayaks. Like
Uh,
I think for boats it probably isn't as necessary because it's a lot of money for that size of a battery, but like the lower end kayak stuff, like I run my GoPros, my fish finder and lights off my kayak off of 140 amp lithium for an entire weekend and
yeah.
it's
So
fine.
every time I go out, I have my Dakota Lithium 12-volt 23 amp for the fish finders,
Yep.
which I can run that thing basically all weekend without
Yeah.
having to charge my fish finder. And then I'm running the 12-volt 100 amp for the motor, which,
Gotcha.
dude, I've ran that thing 13 miles down the Sudbury River
Wow.
and not run out,
That's crazy.
And
What kind
then
of kayak do you have?
I have the Wilderness Recon.
Okay.
I have it in pedal drive, and I have the paddle one with the
Okay.
bow mounted uh, Motor XI3.
Okay. Yep.
And then I'm also, dude, I run that little 10-volt power box they have. I
Okay.
keep I keep that thing right under the seat of the kayak. That'll charge my phone, my headphones, spotlight.
Nice.
If my fish finder battery dies, it doubles
Backup.
as that.
Yep.
That thing
That's
has
cool.
saved my life more times on the
I
water
can
than not.
imagine. Yeah, it's funny because I used to just run freaking battery banks. So because I'm doing YouTube, I have a camera behind me, a camera in front of me. I'm
Hmm.
constantly using my phone, and GoPro batteries suck power. It's insane how much power they use. So I
Yeah.
used to just do like the stupid battery banks, and then when it rained, I had to like tape them up because I wasn't buying like I'm not buying $100 battery banks that are waterproof. I was buying Walmart ones, and then I was like
$20 grabs.
taping all the holes and stuff so they don't get wet. And I was like, screw this. So I bought a lithium and then like I ran all the wires. So I had those like 12-volt SAE plugs.
Hmm.
I found there's a USB to 12-volt SAE cable I bought on Amazon. So I run all of that off of that. And it's crazy how like the battery's this big. Like and the
Yeah.
Dakotas are cool. Like I looked at those as well. Like those are I only bought the Z Pro because I have a discount code through Slay Nation, but
Dude,
um,
it's
it's crazy.
amazing that 100-volt. I mean, to have that big of a battery and have it weigh only 30 pounds comes with the
Right.
built-in handle. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, because we all grew up fishing, bass boats here and there, and you think about trying to load those batteries into that thing. It was
Oh, dude.
two-hand job.
Yeah, that was always a joke when you were a kid, as your dad would try to get you to pick the battery up because it weighed
Yeah.
like 80 fucking pounds. It was ridiculous. So
Yeah.
yeah, those old deep cycle marine batteries were freaking heavy. And in a kayak, like let's be honest, I'm a big boy, so I'm already kind of getting closer to the threshold of my kayak, and then you start adding an 80-pound battery and then the trolling motor and your tackle and
Oh yeah. The thing about my kayak is part of the reason I love it is it's so light. It's 12 feet, it's almost 4 feet wide, but it's 75 pounds. So
wow, that's
even
crazy.
even with that battery and the trolling motor, I'm still probably, I don't know, 120, which is still
Yeah, dude.
under
Oh,
most
dude, I'm in an
kayaks.
Old Town Topwater. That Old Town Topwater, dude, I think is 80 pounds with the drive before you even put any rigging in it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
insane.
it's actually funny. Like Connecticut River event is when I really noticed it. When I put the motor guide on the front of the recon, we started going. I was the only one in the recon. You watched us all, same motors, all running
Yep.
100-volt batteries, but I was slipping just a little bit ahead, and it was
Yep.
because of how light that kayak was that it could go.
Right. Yeah, I'm just starting. Like I did a tournament in Rhode Island
Hmm.
last year. It was the Big Bass Challenge or something like that. It's one that
Yeah, yeah.
it was kind of funny because I kind of snuck into it. So about 2 weeks before the end of it, I found it on the site. I was just looking, and
Hmm.
it was like the top two of the state entered. Well, there was only one dude in Vermont that was in it.
Okay.
So I was like, screw it. I'll enter and catch a bass, and I'll automatically be in the championship.
Hmm.
So I said, screw it. It'd be worth it. It'd be fun for YouTube content and all that. So I ended up just entering, caught a fish that day, and ended up entering into it. And then I actually drove down there Friday to pre-fish. I had never fished in Rhode Island in my life. Like I don't, it's not really a destination fishery. So I was just like,
No,
I'll go down there
definitely
and check it out.
not.
Dude, it was that week. It was like 20 degrees,
Hmm.
and I was tent camping because I didn't want to spend money on like a hotel.
Yeah.
So I literally had this little 4-man tent with like 8 blankets. And then I went to the first boat ramp. I caught some fish. I was like, okay, this is cool. It was like Pat. I can't even know how it's pronounced. I'm putting a piss off everybody in Rhode Island, but it's like Pascog or Pasqua. I don't know how to freaking pronounce it. Honestly, it's like a lot of the places in Mass that have like a
Hey,
specific
dude, it's all like
pronunciation.
Native American names and
It's
stuff. There's
insane.
so many I can't even pronounce.
So I fished that one, and then I went to another one. And dude, I'll have to text you a picture. So all the bodies of water, there was 5 bodies of water that you could fish in this tournament,
Hmm.
and all of them were reservoirs,
Okay.
and they all did a drawdown, and like a
Ooh.
big drawdown. So literally, I got to the next boat ramp, and it was small. This place was like 100-acre pond.
Hmm.
And I was like, screw it, I'll fish it. It's almost dark. I'm just gonna fish this for a few hours. I caught a pickerel, which I actually entered into the Jigs and Bigs tournament, like we were talking about, and just happened to catch it and throw it in.
Yeah.
And then the next morning I got up. So I got there Friday, Saturday, the next morning I get up. I'm at the boat ramp at 6 a.m. I'm pumped. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go fish this place. I pull in, dude, and you couldn't even launch a boat. The freaking water was probably 40 yards from the bottom of the ramp.
Oof.
It was just rock. Like it was like you could tell they drew this thing down so freaking low. So then I went to the other body of water and fished it, and I actually saw swans, which I didn't even know. Like I've always thought of swans as like something you see in cartoons and weird shit, but I've
Uh,
never seen them in person.
dude, they are all around here.
Dude,
All
I thought they were
around
like
here.
I thought these things were like fake in the water where
No,
I
they're
was.
mean too. They're
Dude,
mean.
I was actually intimidated. I didn't realize how big they are.
I've had a couple come at me in the kayak early like spring
Oh,
when they're
really?
mating and stuff. Yeah, you get in some of those creeks off of lakes here in Mass, and they'll be in there bedding, and dude,
Yeah, like
you roll up, they get mean. They
it was
get
literally
mean.
I was literally recording it. I was like rolling out and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like that I thought honestly thought it was like those like float toys, like somebody had just left a bunch of
Hmm.
them. But then I was like, no, those are literally diving into the water and eating shit. And I'm like, those are fucking swans. Like I'd never seen them. We don't have them here in Vermont. So I was like, what the hell? So then literally I went back to the body of water. I ended up going back to the body of water that I fished the first fish. And somebody, I swear, like somebody forgot to shut off the dam.
Hmm.
Because when we got to the boat ramp that morning, when I launched the first day, there was a pile of rocks in front of the boat ramp that
Yeah.
I kind of got caught on, but I could get over. When
Yeah.
I got there for the tournament day, that thing was this far out of the water.
Wow.
And like literally on the shoreline, there was pontoon boats and jet skis and shit just trapped on the shoreline. Like I think somebody either missed the memo on what day they were supposed to do the drawdown, or the guy who did it. They actually dropped the water so low, we couldn't even actually get back at the end of the tournament.
Wow.
We actually had to go to the shore and
And
carry our
pull
fucking
up.
kayaks all the way back. There was a couple of guys, and I wish I had gotten his name. One of the guys in the tournament literally was just, he came back early and he was just helping us huck our kayaks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and it sucked because it wasn't like solid, it was bank. So it
Mm.
was like mud. Like you were getting out and sinking up to your fucking knees. And it was October, it was Halloween weekend.
Oh yeah, that's cold up here.
So the water was freaking cold, and you were in the freaking mud, and there was just so many guys that were just so pissed off because we're like, we can't even get our fucking kayak. Like I was push poling with my
Mhm.
paddle because I couldn't actually use my pedal drive or paddle at all. It was
This
freaking ridiculous.
this year we also had a drought like we haven't seen in years and
Yep.
years. I mean, the Sudbury River. I won that local trail event this year, and we grew up fishing that river. Me and my buddies, all through high school and whatnot. And dude, I haven't seen it that low since like 2015. I
That's
mean,
crazy.
it was usually you can have bass boats run the section I fish and stuff, and it's usually like 6 feet deep. They couldn't even get in there till the
Really?
end of the year. It was
That's
like
crazy.
kayak only, 3 feet deep the whole way. It was like half of what the river used to be.
Yeah, it's insane, dude. Like and that's the thing is that, to be honest, even though that was my experience on my first like live tournament, I'd done a lot of like the national KBF stuff, and I
Mhm.
will admit, I'm gonna say this, and I'm probably gonna disparage KBF, but like KBF in Vermont, there's a couple of dudes that pretty much win every month on the
Mhm.
challenge series, and sometimes they submit the same fish twice and no one's judging it. Like whoever is doing the judging, like I literally took a photo one day that I was the guy I was competing against. Granted, I didn't have anything even without the second fish, so he still beat me fair and square either way. But it
Yeah.
was like what made me stop doing them was like there was a fish and there was a fucking half-eaten Pringles bag or Pringles thing in there, and there was like a thing of baits in the background in two photos from two fish that looked exactly the same. The fish had like the same kind of markings, and it was the same length fish. And I was like, what are the chances that this dude is eating the same snack with the same bait on the same day with the same length fish? I mean, it's possible. I
So
can't really complain about it, but
I know, I think it started 2 years ago. Um, KBF actually uses a separate company to
okay,
judge their own stuff. So
gotcha,
it's all done through a second-hand company, does all the judging and stuff. So
gotcha.
not to not to bail KBF out on that one,
And
but
it was just, and it wasn't even like I said, I lost either way, so I didn't care
yeah,
necessarily, but it just put a bitter taste in my mouth. Like if they're not taking the time. Like I, as someone who had just started doing tournaments like that, was like, dude, this is clearly the same fish.
yeah. Well,
Like, and I know the rules. Like, I understand the rules. Like, I actually read them, and I was like, this doesn't make any goddamn sense. Why does it always have to be facing left? Now that I've done a bunch of them, I'm like, oh, because you can see a mark on the fish on the left side.
well,
So if you
they
flip the
do
fish over, you could.
they actually do a thing where they take, say if it's close to a duplicate or something, they'll take the fish and they put it through some program and it actually like scans the scales.
Oh, really?
And
That's
if
cool.
there's 7 uh, points, it's almost like a fingerprint thing. If there's
Wow.
like 7 ID points, they can tell, okay, that's a
Gotcha.
duplicate or it's not. It's tough. It's tough. I've
I
had
can
some in
imagine.
betting
SAU, yeah,
tournaments that
I
I
can
thought
imagine.
were different fish and wound up being the same fish a day later. Just off like 3 feet.
Right.
But
Now,
yeah,
don't get me wrong. I've submitted the same fish twice by accident and realized it, and literally, like, actually, I did it in Jigs and Bigs, and I messaged Sean on Instagram, and I was like, dude, I entered the same fish. Just DQ that second fish. It was my bad. I realized it. Don't even bother to vet it, which probably ended up being you vetting it if it was because it was a largemouth at
if
the time.
if it
So it was
was
Chronic Trips one, I think, is when I did it. So
chronic trips, yeah, that probably would have been me
because I
judging.
literally messaged Sean because I knew him from the podcast, and I was just like, dude, if my second fish submitted this time, just DQ it because I definitely submitted the same fish twice, and I didn't mean to, like,
I actually
cheat.
think I remember getting that call from Sean saying, "Hey, you mind going in there and taking one out?" And
Because I
he's,
take, like, I'm kind of like OCD because sometimes I'll actually literally take 6 or 7 pictures of the same fish because I'm like making sure I have everything in focus, and there's
dude,
always like water on your camera or something on it.
I'm the same way. So I'll snap one photo. I'll put my catchboard where the bump is like up against the side gunnel of my
Yep.
kayak.
Yep.
But if you lay a fish flat, you can get a little bit more out of them. So I
Yep.
always take that photo like 3 times, and then I'll pick my catchboard up and lay it in the position that we all know the fish can jump a lot
Right.
easier, but you'll try and get that extra
Oh,
quarter-inch out of them.
I learned the hard way. I put my net now like next to me because then I can just catch them when they try to freaking. Because it's amazing how like they can contort their body to get off that board. It's impressive.
Dude, you get into the big ones. That one down in Alabama, that 22 that jumped on me. I had the net down. That
Yeah.
thing leered the net and then some off
Yep.
that board. You get into smallies, it's a
Smallies are
rough
crazy.
game.
Yeah.
It's a rough game.
Yeah, and I wasn't even in, like, when I had one jump the board on me, I wasn't even in a freaking, like, I was just in a national regular tournament. It wasn't anything
Yeah,
like anything like a KBF championship or anything like that. It was, and even then I was just like, I can't imagine, like, now that I've had that experience, once you have that happen to you, when you see it happen to someone on a YouTube video, you almost like you're like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like, you want to call them and
your
get sorry.
heart sinks. Yeah, your heart
You're
sinks.
like,
You're
oh
like, oh
man.
my god, I know the feeling. It's awful.
Yeah, it's just like, because it's like you do all that work to get that fish in the boat. You do all that work to get the phone ready, the
Hmm.
board down, the tags visible, and then they just go boom, and you're like, are you shitting me right now?
Well, we all know the second they hit that net, you get like that sigh of relief, like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
it's in, and then they jump, and it's just like
yep,
you thought you had it all right there.
yeah. It's the funniest thing, dude. So you were saying you've been fishing pretty much all winter. You guys have had some open water, or
Yeah, I'm like
crazy?
20 minutes from Cape Cod, so
Okay,
Cape doesn't really freeze the salt air and stuff. So
right.
we've been able to get out. I mean, it's full ice fishing gear in the kayak. I'm
Yeah, I can
out there
imagine.
looking like the Michelin man, you know.
Yeah, oh,
But
yeah.
but yeah, there's a couple of us who have been getting after it all weekend, or I mean all winter. Ken Woods, I fish with a lot. Derek Brundle, Matt Conant, those guys are all out there all year long. So
For those of you listening or watching, look those names up because he just dropped, like, you know, Northeast top 10 angler list right there. Like, just so you understand, if you don't know those names, you should look them up because the standings in the, tournaments, those guys are up here. So
I think every one of them has made the KBF 10 at one point.
yeah, like
I know
that's,
Brundle and Derek are repeat people at the KBF
oh
10. They've
yeah,
had multiple. They're no joke. Matt's still the only Triple Crown winner in KBF history. So
right. That's what's crazy too is I think, honestly, I think the Northeast gets looked like, being from Vermont, especially here, Champlain, yeah, absolutely. Everybody, that's a bucket list for half of the fishing industry, right? But
yeah,
they don't know about any of the other lakes here at all.
dude.
And Massachusetts is kind of the same way. There's not a lot of, like,
We don't
It,
have a lake big enough to
there
let.
isn't a destination fishery up there that the YouTubers or the Bass Pro or anything comes
Yeah.
up to do. So we get a lot of like disrespect in this corner of the country for like they don't realize that like we do have big bass here and we do know how to catch them. So then when we go down south, it's funny. Like when you look at those leaderboards, man, there's a lot of people from your state, especially. There's not as
Every
many Vermont guys, but
Connecticut, you got Ryan Nye,
yep,
Jack Tibbins. Those guys
yep,
are standout guys. I mean, there's a lot of sticks up here in New England, but it's awesome too because especially with like our group, basically everybody from Mass that's doing the national trails, well, are doing the local trails too. So a
right.
local win for us is like almost
Almost a national trail at
almost
that
like
point. Yeah,
bragging rights because you're still
right.
beating Brundle, Wood,
Yep.
Matt Ferreira. You got these big names who all got big checks behind them.
Yeah, that's what sucks up here is like in Vermont we have no trails for bass for kayak. There's a lot of boat trails. There's a lot of Champlain boat trails. There isn't a single unless you do like a national, like a KBF challenge, or
Mm-hmm.
there is no. I like I said, I tried to start one here, but I couldn't do it. But ultimately, like I'm actually going to be fishing in New Hampshire
Okay.
because Slay Nation has the small vessel in New Hampshire, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really the closest. Like even that being said, it's going to be. And I know let me clarify. I'm saying it's a long drive to drive 2 hours to fish a tournament to the guy that goes and fishes freaking Alabama. But
That was a
like,
rough one. That was, I think we did 28 hours to get home. We
yeah,
got hung
that's
up.
rough.
That was like, dude, I got out of
Yeah.
Kenwood's car and rolled right to work like
Oh,
Tuesday morning. It
that
was
sucks.
it was rough.
That's awful. But yeah, so I looked up a lot of the locations for those tournaments, and it's going to be like 2.5 hours. But I'm gonna literally day trip it. So like I'm gonna get up at like 2,
Mm-hmm.
pack down there, 3 hour drive down, load my kayak up, check in, fish, and then actually I'm thinking about I actually talked to the tournament director. I think I'm gonna stay overnight and then pre-fish the next lake
Mm-hmm.
so that I don't have to like travel
Come
down
back.
multiple
Yeah,
times, keep
yeah.
going back and forth. So I'm literally gonna go down there on Saturday, basically fish, find somewhere to sleep in my truck where I won't get arrested, and then go fish the next body of water on Sunday, and then
Any Walmart or Cracker Barrel. I
yeah,
will let you know right now.
that's my plan. Yeah,
When we first started this stuff, or when I first started back in like 2018, we were trying to be cheaper with it. Nobody wanted to do Airbnbs. I mean,
right.
I was young. We were sleeping in Walmart parking lots. I remember I had the feel free on a trailer. I was sleeping bag and a pillow right in the kayak in the trailer in the Walmart parking lot. Wake
Dude,
up.
I thought about it. I actually thought about it because it was funny because there was two things I was thinking about doing because I got the F-150, I got the extended cap, so like
Mm-hmm.
I know Bailey from Serious Angler, he was showing like this like air mattress thing that fits in the back seat,
Yep.
but I don't know if I'm tall enough where I don't know if that's going to be comfortable to try to lay back there. It's kind of iffy. Like it's gonna be, I'm gonna have to like kind of be curled up a little bit. But
Yeah.
then I thought about it, like I could, like you said, I could almost get one of those like single man backpacking tents and just throw it on my kayak trailer and just sleep next to my kayak.
Dude, I've slept on the kayak. I've slept in sleeping bags at boat ramps, just
Yo,
laid
that's
out on
funny.
asphalt. I'll never forget one trip. We all went from Mass, went down to fish the KBF on Lake Anna. We finished that trail event Saturday. That's back when it was just one day trail events.
Gotcha.
We turned around, finished awards, drove all the way to Rhode Island, and like six of us who were like buddied up two to a car, we all wound up just driving right to Rhode Island, sleeping at the boat ramp for like 3 hours, and then fishing a local Rhode Island tournament.
Oh man.
It was funny. By like noon, you could see like half of us were just out on the seat of the kayak.
Yeah,
Like,
I can
um,
imagine. Like, oh.
Dude, it got to the point I didn't even know what I was casting at. I'm just throwing it
Yep.
out there, praying,
It's funny because like you don't realize, like I know like the whole like fishing sport mentality, like if you fish for a tournament, like a day of, if you take hours to hours, apples to apples comparison, when you're fishing a tournament versus fun fishing, there's like a tenfold level of energy because you're mentally like, you're constantly going, am I fishing the right bait? Am I fishing the right area? Am I using my time right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not just being like, oh, I'm going to try to catch a bass over on this log. It's like, if I spend 10 minutes to pedal to that log and I don't catch a fish, I just wasted money that I could, like you have this whole thing. So I couldn't imagine doing another tournament after doing that. Like that's crazy.
So what you were just saying is actually kind of the reason I fell in love with tournament fishing was I kind of got into fishing after the loss of my sister and my mom had passed, and I wasn't in the right mindset, and I kind of found fishing, kayak fishing, through a buddy. And once I got into the tournaments, man, like you said, nothing matters but that next
Yeah.
cast. As you're reeling, you're scanning the bank, looking for that
Yep.
high productive spot to hit next, and it was nothing matters but that 10 seconds. And
It's funny because I always watch those videos, like, and obviously Ike and Ellie's probably the like most famous one, but like when guys like lose their shit off catching a 16-inch bass, and I'm like, dude, it's a 16-inch bass. Like, why do you care? I did that Rhode Island tournament. I only caught one fucking bass in that tournament, but it
yeah,
was the biggest bass. So like, it wasn't a bag. It was literally the biggest bass,
yeah.
and I had fished 4.5 or 5 hours of the tournament and had no bites at all. And just
Mm-hmm.
like screw it, and I threw a lipless, and this bass hit this lipless like it was a fucking top water.
Yeah.
Like it just blew up and took this lipless, and I got it to the boat, and I was like, like I literally couldn't breathe
It's
from a
almost like,
17 and a half inch largemouth, which is like a big fish, but not
yeah.
that big, really.
So I don't know if you hunt or not, if you're
Oh yeah.
familiar with buck fever.
Oh yeah.
But
Same feeling.
dude, if I catch one over 21, you can ask the buddies I fish with, dude. I'm shaking. It's full
Yeah.
buck fever. You got the deep breath. You wind up looking at your videos when you get home, and your voice is like 2 tones higher than it
Oh
normally
yeah.
is and stuff.
I have a video that's gonna hit my channel. It's literally fisherman overreacts, and it's literally me catching that fish, and I'm just like, I gotta breathe, I gotta breathe, I gotta weigh this fish. And it was just like,
Yeah,
I get it now. And the thing is, I played like baseball in high school, so I was always in the competition. When I got out of high school, I went into beer gut softball, and I always needed
yeah,
that competition. And tournament angling, like, satisfies that, because when you watch the video, like you said, going back and watching the video, I realize like when I'm fun fishing, I'm just kind of reeling, I'm checking the bait, I'm looking around. But when I'm doing a tournament, I'm like literally not even looking at my pole. I'm like, there's a tree over there, I'm gonna hit that net. Like you
yeah.
watch, your eyes are kind of darting all over the place because you're trying to chess move three
Oh
moves
yeah.
ahead, because you're like, I need to think about, it's a different mentality because you'd have to use that time.
Finder bank open water. That's always where my eyes are at.
Yep.
Finder bank open, finder
Yep.
bank open, just constantly, man, constantly.
What do you have for electronics? What do you have for a fish finder?
Garmin 9 inch,
Okay.
and then on the pedal drive, I have a Garmin 6 inch EcoMat.
Okay.
So
See, I want that fish finder. To be honest, they're a little bit pricey for me right now because they're. So I actually ended
it's
up,
tough. It's tough to pull the trigger.
dude, a 9 inch on a kayak must be tricky to like. Do you have it like rigged special so you don't like have it in the way, or it's because it seems
it's
like a big screen for a.
it's right in the middle.
Okay.
So where I did it is like if you were to look at my kayak and imagine the pedal drive on it,
Okay.
where the pedal drive folds forward, I put Mighty Track right there, and the fish finder
Uh,
comes out right up on on the pedal drive, the 6 inch is on the side rail. But
Yep.
do you look at some of these guys? I mean, I know Ferreira's running 2.9s. You got Ryan Nye. I don't know if anybody watched his Lake Murray video. He's flying 3 graphs out there. I
Yep.
think he's got 2.9s and a 6 or
I know
something.
Barely Egbert from Serious Anglers running fucking Mega Live, and like
Mhm.
he's got like a boat set up on his kayak. He's got the whole left side of him is just screens.
Matt's got a 12 inch on his, and dude, I mean, you could play Xbox on that thing. You start looking at it on a kayak. So,
Yeah, dude, it's nuts. Like it's funny because I started out with I bought just a Garmin Striker 4 because it was cheap.
hmm
Everybody had them. It's simple 2D, and honestly, I sucked at reading it. And then I was mostly using it for depth and see if I could find rock piles and stuff like that.
yeah,
This year, I actually upgraded to the Lowrance hook reveal, mostly because it's going to be easier to find baits of fish. I don't know if you've seen that thing, but it's got like
yeah,
the hybrid 2D. It's like down imaging and 2D hybrided so that you can see
yeah.
the fish marks. But I really want like the Garmin side imaging and all of that stuff. It's just I have a bass boat too, and it's hard to justify buying that expensive of a fish finder for my kayak when I haven't even upgraded my bass boat one yet. So it's like,
So I didn't even have side imaging until this year we're rolling into now. What actually made the big difference for me, same thing. I started on the Garmin 4. I'm pretty sure it's still in the room. I use it
yep,
as a second ice fishing
yep,
finder now. But going from that to the 6, when I got maps, that's uh that's what changed the game for me. Being able to roll into
apps.
these places and zoom out and have the built-in avionics. We all know how that is. It's very hit or miss. Some of the humps are there, some are
See,
definitely not. But
being from Vermont, I that was something that was I think if I was doing more like what you do tournament style, it would be more
Mhm.
important. There isn't a lake here in Vermont other than Champlain and Hortonia and Bombazine that have a Navionics map.
So a lot of them, like some of the lakes it had, dude, surprised me. How they do it is, if other people map it, it'll go into like their system, and then
Gotcha.
when you update, dude, there were like 100-acre ponds that I actually had
Gotcha.
navionics on the finder, but then you'd go to some of the bigger ones and it'd like tell you were on land, and it's like,
Right.
how does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what see, a lot of the places I went on their site because I don't even know if I canceled that. I did a free trial when I went down to Rhode Island, actually.
Yep,
I downloaded the app because I didn't have a
yep.
fish finder that supported it. And I was like, I'll just use the app for now to mark waypoints and shit, and then I'll figure it out. And like all the lakes around me that I fish didn't have a map at all. So I was like, well, then it's not really useful for me to do it, which is why
Well,
I actually bought the Lowrance hook. But I think you're right. There probably is.
and they also have an option in there called quick draw contours,
Okay.
and you can map it yourself.
Yeah, I
Live records, do a quick
gotcha.
loop, and you'll get a basic kind of all
Yeah.
right depth grab. But I know Alabama, that thing saved my life. I figured out a bite, and it was
Yeah.
specific to a certain pattern. And after the first hour, it was all right. Let's roll that pattern, zoom out on it. All right, there's
Yeah.
one here, one here. Let's just run that the rest of the day. And
I think that's the other thing with the tournament side is like when you're fun fishing, you kind of just pedal around and cast and reel, but like you have to be very detail oriented. Like I've noticed like it's all like you have to remember exactly what you were doing because
yeah,
you could find that offshore structure, or you could find that hump, or you could find that pattern, but if you don't do 3 cranks in a jerk, if you do 2 in a jerk, that's going to make the difference whether that fish is going to bite or not.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's crazy. Like,
it's even color, dude. You can be sitting
oh,
there
big time.
throwing the exact same bait as the dude next to you, and he's got one little color difference, and he's
Yeah,
whacking them, and you can't even get a look. It blew my mind coming in tournaments, like the little things that can
yeah,
make a difference. Like that's one of the things that makes me love fresh baits. All their baits float. So
right.
like, dude, when you stop it on the drop shot, it's gonna nose down instead of
Gotcha.
just falling. Like you start to realize the little things that it's like, well, this makes it look a little bit more like
Yep.
it's real and
Yep. Yeah, it's
it's
funny. I have to really check them out because I actually prefer um more slow falling baits than I
hmm
notice. Like anything I fish with a plastic, I fish most of it on like a spinning rod and I use high vis line and I don't even I flip my bail, cast and I leave it open and I
yeah,
wait for that line to move or tick or pull and like that's why I don't use Senkos because they fall too fast in my opinion. Like
dude. Our
granted the price is ridiculous, but
so our Senko actually floats that if you put it on nothing but a wacky rig, dude, it'll take a while for it,
yeah,
like a while for it to get down. I usually have to stick a nail weight in them, but
something in them, yeah.
I'm super impatient. The way I drop shot fish
Yeah.
is probably unlike anything you've ever seen.
Oh really?
They call it the Chagnon shuffle around here because,
Gotcha.
dude, I won't stop. It almost looks like I'm fishing a jerk bait when I'm
Oh
doing a
really?
drop shot. Yeah,
That's
because
funny.
I'll get it to kind of dart like this on the bottom, but
Okay.
when you see me up working it, it looks like what is he doing?
Fishing
And
a
then,
jerkbait with a spinning rod.
dude, we can't. Well, I do. I
Do you?
absolutely do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have to try that.
I can bomb it a lot further. I'm throwing my topwater spooks and
Okay.
poppers and stuff are all spinning gear for me.
Really? See
Yeah.
that I suck with so that's a bait I've never caught a fish with as a jerkbait. And I should be able to. Like I know the idea, I got the concept of it. I could see where the spinning is gonna let you get it out there further.
hmm
And realistically, the action on a spinning rod's about the same as what you're doing with a jerkbait rod. So that kind of makes sense actually.
So when you're throwing the jerk baits like the mega basses that
Yep.
you're trying to get that thing to 8 feet,
Right.
you need to be able to bomb it and
Yeah,
get a
you gotta get it
couple of
way out there,
cranks
yeah.
in to get it down before you can work it. And I found even the motion is a lot easier on a spinning reel when they hit it to kind of come up into the set
Right.
compared
Okay.
to doing it on a bait caster.
I'll try
But
that.
yeah, yeah, that one I can't take credit for that. Matt and Derek were the ones who showed me how they were throwing it. I used to do it on the bait caster, and now I can bomb it twice as far. And
Yep. Now I think about it too, your spinning rods are typically shorter rods, which on a kayak being able to you're gonna have that not gonna have slap the water as much because the rods are shorter. Or at least
actually,
mine are shorter.
yeah, I was thinking about it. I actually think my spinning setup is
Oh really? That's
longer
nice.
than my flipping one. My drop shot rod's like a 7.6 or a
Oh
7.
really? Wow.
Yeah, I got a
Yeah, my
Douglas X Matrix, and
uh,
but I mean, I can put a net on that thing and send it a country mile.
yeah, I can imagine with that much. Yeah, I think all mine are like 6.7s or maybe
Mm.
7 foot. But of course, I don't buy. That's actually part of my channel is like grassroots, like good old boy fishing. Like
hmm
my goal, and I will say this now, and somebody will probably pull this video up later to slap me in the face with it. But like I don't. If I'm ever to a point on my channel where I'm like, oh, this is a good combo, it's gonna cost you $300 for the reel and $200 for the rod, I'm gonna be disappointed in myself because part of why I started my channel was is there was two things. It was I was watching Tactical Bassin one day, and they're like,
Yep.
"Oh, you need to use a 12-inch magworm to catch bigger bass." And I'm like, if I throw a fucking 12-inch magworm in Vermont, I'm going to send every fucking bass in my lake to the opposite side of the lake they're not going, and I get it. Bass eat big baits, and I get it, but there's nothing 12 inches in that profile in my water.
Yeah.
So they're not going to eat it. You may get one or two, but
Mm-hmm.
there's stuff like that. And the other thing they were talking about discount or like reasonably priced combos, and it was like a fucking Corrado. and I
DC,
was
yeah.
like, and I was like, dude, no. I'm like, I used fucking Luz and Abu Garcia Black Maxes, and like,
So
I don't see the need necessarily.
it's funny, dude, because if you look at my boat, I mean, I have my Douglas X Matrix, like $320 drop shot rod, but
Right.
I got at least two of them. I know still. Berkeley used to make those lightning rods. They still make them,
I
but it's
got
a
one around here somewhere.
completely different
Yeah.
design.
Yep. Yep.
The old school ones that they don't make anymore, dude, that $30 rod was better than a couple of
I
$80
got a
rods
I
I
got
had.
a I got a casting rod. It's the old orange, the like burnt orange color fucking ones that had the cork handle.
Yeah, yeah.
And before
So
they went to this new design that they
yeah,
have, and I got one of those in the casting rod, and yeah, that's the thing is I've got those. I've got a loose carbon fire, which is like a Dick's
yeah, yeah.
exclusive thing. It was like $40 for the rod or $50 for the rod,
Hmm.
and I've caught so many fish in that. My biggest fish for the longest time, my biggest fish I caught on a Hank Parker like combo that I bought at Walmart that were like 2 for 30 or some fucking like
Yeah.
ridiculous sale like that. And I actually caught that fish after breaking the tip off that rod and retying, and still
It's
caught a 5 pounder on it. So it was like I always try to like I'll buy a lot of stuff, and honestly, it's a combination of ADD and I'm like, oh, I want something new. But it's
yeah.
also like I'm trying to show people on my channel like you don't have to buy a Corrado DC to catch bass. You can use a Abu Garcia Black Max combo for $50 and still catch bass on it. Like you don't need to do all
You
that.
will, but you get into the things like you start buying
Yeah.
bait, but dude, that X Matrix going to that from like an $80 drop shot rod, even it's insane the difference
Yeah.
you feel. You know if you're caught on a rock or if it's a
Right.
fish. And when I went and saw them at the show, and I mean, we hooked it up, and the dude took the line and put it to his throat and started talking. You could feel it all the way in the butt of the rod, and
Wow.
I was like, "Oh my god, this thing is lights
That's
out."
crazy.
Now I see why people spend $300.
Yeah, no, and I could definitely. It's funny because it's like I kind of don't do what I preach either because I have, Abu Garcia Zetas and
Hmm.
Tatulas and which aren't Corrados, but they're
They're high
$200
end.
reels.
They're high end. Yeah.
And it's funny because the problem with bass fishing, and not even a problem, and I think that's what I love about this sport is that like I was talking to somebody, I would love to give credit to who it was, but I was watching a podcast one day and they were explaining the difference. And somebody asked like, how is bass fishing a sport? And he goes, well, if you think about it, our ball is alive. So our ball can adapt. So you can learn how to throw a football by throwing it in your backyard. And you can
Hmm.
learn how to bass fish by fishing your local pond. But the problem is, unlike a football game, the water clarity, the wind, the barometric pressure, whether there was a full moon, the bass is just fucking pissed off today.
Yeah.
Whatever condition, something could change everything and you have to adapt, and there's no
I can't.
standard playbook. You can't just automatically I could go to the water and fish right next to you, be fishing the exact same equipment and not catch a fish because you do the Chagnon shake instead of
Yeah.
fishing a
It's,
traditional drop shot.
so the way I refer to it is dude, it's almost like we're quarterbacks, and
Yeah.
every quarterback has that internal clock of, okay, my pocket is collapsing. It's time to get out.
Yep.
when you get into tournament fishing, it's almost the same thing. Am I wasting too much time in this
Yep.
spot? Is it time to move? Did my whole game plan change? Am I calling an audible right now?
Yep.
It's you kind of get into that quarterback mindset where it's I need to see the whole field and not right where I'm at.
And that's what I'm learning is like, because I actually did like up until my tournament, I literally did an entire series on my YouTube channel where I did like simulated tournaments. So
Mm-hmm.
like I set a time limit and I had to catch 5 biggest fish, and I was basically trying to, basically I had gone and looked at the previous tournaments in
Mm-hmm.
that series and seeing what the winning bag was and tried to beat that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I tried a little bit of everything, and some stuff I didn't even say on camera, but like one of them was like I literally set a timer on my phone for like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like at 30 minutes I needed to go, is what I'm doing working, or do it? Because you don't, it's time goes quick. You don't think about it, and you look down and you go, fuck, I just spent an hour on this rock pile.
Mm-hmm.
Like shit, why am I doing that? I'm not catching anything here. I need to pivot, or should I not pivot now because I wasted an hour? And it's like that whole juggling act of doing that. And I mean, you could technically apply that in fun fishing too, but it's so much more
Oh yeah.
amplified in the tournament world. Like it's
in
just,
in tournaments, dude, you start thinking about the morning bite compared to the afternoon.
uh,
Well, all right, is this a pattern I can ride out all day, or is it
right.
only good till 9 o'clock? How long do I go past that
Yeah.
before I'm just wasting time? And it's stressful. It's definitely
Yeah, absolutely.
stressful.
Now, do you have like a standard loadout that you would use for like what kind of baits and stuff you bring so that you can pivot, or do you just kind of do it per lake? Like, do you do a ton of research ahead of time? And
I do. I do research. I'm not gonna say a bunch because I know there are definitely dudes that do a lot more than me.
yeah,
I do a lot of rolling the dice. I do
yeah,
road work, so I don't get a lot of time off in the
right,
summer. So a lot of times, a lot of my stuff is online research and roll in the night before and let's roll the dice and see how
yeah,
this goes type of deal. But I try and rig up different for everything. Check the water clarity. YouTube and Google Maps is a tournament
yeah,
angler's best friend nowadays.
absolutely,
And yeah, I'm usually 10 rods and try and have them. It's tough. You never
yeah,
know. We still wind up retying at least 3 rods
oh yeah,
come tournament day. I think I've only ever had like 3 tournaments where you go in with a set game plan works and you run it
right.
all day. Usually it's plan B through Z through the rest of the day.
Makes sense. Yeah, that fish I caught in Rhode Island, it was literally lipless. So it was
Hmm.
literally Halloween weekend, and I catch a lot of fish. I mean, let's be honest, lipless works pretty much all year long. So, but it
Yep.
was like this weird color that I bought. It was like a white. It was like a shad color, but it was like white with chartreuse. Had some like green on the belly. It was like this ugly fucking lure that I
Yep.
honestly had never caught a fish on, and I was using all the ones that I always catch fish on, craw colors, everything that I usually use. I actually had casted I actually bought, so I've been using Berkeley War Pigs, and they have a vintage craw color.
Yep.
It's kind of like a brown. I'm sure you've probably seen it, but it's like got little. So I catch a lot of fish on that, and I actually bought like 3 of them right before the tournament, and I had them in my box, and I literally forgot one at home. I left one in my truck, and I had one, and it was tied on. It was good. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I casted it. The third fucking cast, I don't know what happened. My knot broke, and that thing went zinging across the lake. And I was like, well, screw it. And then I just started like using random ones, and I just threw this one on,
Oh
and
yeah.
it worked. But it's like I try to like I think my big strategy is to like have something for each like depth and then
Hmm.
each like condition, so that like you said, that's if you ever wondered, for those who are watching, like if you guys ever wondered why bass fishermen have 15 rods on the boat, it's because you need something for 8 feet and 5 feet and 2 feet, and you need something for wood and something for grass, and having to sit there and tie a bait on, you cost yourself 2 to 3 minutes every time you retie, plus the time it takes to figure out that bait that you're losing. So if you have different baits, you can go, okay, there's a tree. Here's the rod I have specifically for fishing wood, and I can fish it. So that's why, if
It,
you ever wondered, that's what that's
it's
for.
also like also if you figure out a good bite, say you got a lake and you're on nothing but finesse. I'll go out there with 4 spinning rods, all with the exact same thing tied on,
Yep.
just
Yep.
in case it
In case
pops
something
off.
breaks
You don't
off.
got
Yep.
to waste that time. Almost like an arrow out the quiver, right on to
Yep.
the next one and keep
Yep.
going.
Oh, I've had days, dude. I went out there with, I usually fish with like 7 rods, 7 or 8, and then
Hmm.
like I've had days where I started with like a square bill and a lipless and a chatterbait, and by the end of the day, I've got a lipless and a lipless and a lipless. It's like
Yep.
I'm like it's 3 different colors, but this weight and this action has been working, so I'm gonna throw 3 on there and I'm just gonna keep whipping them out there and figure out which one catches them.
I actually, though, I gotta say, I started doing better in tournaments when I kind of figured out my own style
Yep.
and what worked for me. And it was just, you know, instead of trying all this new stuff, I'm going to stick to the stuff I know and kind of ride it out that way. But there's always those lakes you've never seen before. And it's all right, nothing I
Yeah.
know works. Let's try something else.
There's the whole like the thing I learned in bass fishing is there's literally a learning curve, and the learning curve is funky because you start out, you're intimidated to use new baits, so you start out with the easy stuff. Everybody starts with a Senko, and they
Hmm.
kind of work their way into stuff, and then you discover crankbaits, and then you buy every fucking color that looks like something that you think you would catch fish, and then you buy 5 different styles and 20 different brands, and then you kind of come back down. Everybody I know kind of comes back down and go perch, bluegill, basic colors,
Black
and
and
they kind
blue,
of
green
black
pump.
and blue. It's like worms. You buy there if you go there isn't I bet there isn't a single color that's ever been made that they don't have a fucking Senko or Yumdinger in.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
but you catch fish on black, blue fleck, green pumpkin, and June bug.
I get it all
That
the time when I'm working the expos with fresh baits. People will come up. And I can safely say I've thrown their baits from Florida all the way to Indiana and caught
right.
fish. But everybody asks me, what are your colors you'd recommend? Tell you the same thing I tell anybody else. Go ask any bass tournament fisherman in the world. What are the 2 colors you would have on board? Black and blue, green pumpkin.
Everything. Yep. Exactly. Every
you'll
time.
you'll find something that'll eat it. But it's
Yeah.
definitely those are the 2 colors, and then chartreuse is up there. You'll see
Yep.
that one thrown a lot, but it some of the guys work with the crazy colors. I can't get into them,
I can't
but
either. Yeah, I've tried them. I mean, I got the bubblegum pink fucking Yamamotos back there, man, and everybody says the smallmouth love them, and I live in smallmouth kingdom.
yep.
Never caught a smallmouth. You know what I catch my smallmouth on? Fucking June bug and black and blue.
Dude,
So,
Junebug is one of the most slept on. You get into some tannic water, that Junebug does damage.
well, what I do is I actually started. So I didn't actually buy any worms last year. I made all my own,
Okay.
and I literally made a laminate June bug and black and blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I laminated June bug with black and blue on the other side. So it's literally 50-50 worm. And I don't do it like the right way. I
Yeah.
literally take it out of the Senko mold and I cut it on that seam
And
with
redo.
scissors, and then I stick it back in there and I shoot the other color on top because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like the way the laminate plate didn't like, I don't know. I think like the jaggedness of the cut helped it look more natural.
How
But
did they hold up with that?
it actually works really well. So if you have a mold, what I do with mine is I will pour out like, because I think my mold makes 4 at a time. So you get 8 halves each time. So I'll do like 1 or 2 pours with like say black blue. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll turn around and I'll make a June bug up. And then I make my plastic like you're supposed to heat it to like 300. I'll go to like 315 and I leave it in the mold longer to make sure it doesn't like not
Yeah, yeah,
heal. But I also don't let them sit like overnight either. I literally make them, cut them, put them in a pile, and then I actually make my next plastisol and then pour it right after. I think if you were to let them sit overnight, I don't think
it
they would
wouldn't be as
combine.
tacky and stuff. Yeah, yeah,
But it's weird because it's like I literally tested it one day. I was casting a June bug because I have this. I use basically the same formula, so I had the same color June bug, and I casted a June bug, casted a black and blue all day. Tried one of them, and I ended up catching like a bunch of largemouth and smallmouth on them. The other thing I do, this is really weird, and it's actually really bad, but
yeah.
it works. Is I actually use legit coffee in my plastic.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've literally put like I have an old bag. I drink Death Wish coffee, and I had an old bag of the coffee, and I
Mhm.
literally will mix legit coffee in with the fucking plastisol.
It's almost like
It
flake.
foams and sizzles and creates this weird consistency. And once you're done with it, you really can't reheat it because it'll burn the shit out of that coffee.
Yeah. Does
But
it keep the scent? The
it does. It
coffee scent?
smells like coffee, and it's like having a black fleck. It's like adding a black fleck. The problem is you can't do it in like a lighter bait. You couldn't do it with
Yeah,
like a white or a blue because it just turns it brown. But for black,
yeah.
blue, and June bug, I don't really care because they're already so dark that. But yeah, it literally smells like coffee. I've tried
You
some
got the whole
weird
mad
scent stuff,
scientist thing going on over there.
dude. It's I've done garlic powder
Hmm.
in with my baits because I'm thinking like I'm copying what guys do. I tried making this stuff one time. I looked it up and they were like, "Oh, you take olive oil and you mix garlic powder and this other stuff." And what they didn't tell me was you don't you soak your baits in it like a drop or two. So I like
Yeah.
filled the bottom of a sandwich bag with fucking olive oil and put those baits in there and I got the fucking $half size Senkos after because they soaked up all that oil.
Yeah, it's crazy the stuff that goes into it. Being able to, kind of see how Fresh Baits does it and stuff, and being on that end, dude,
Yeah,
you
I can
don't
imagine.
realize how much goes into a pack of Senkos until you like see it from start to finish, and it's like, oh my god,
Well, I've got
it's
to imagine, and the fresh baits kind of have an advantage in the sense of you guys are they're kind of making like a custom, like they're not making the same bait shapes that everybody's making, but like honestly, just making sure you don't infringe on someone's patent. I
it's
can imagine it's
also
probably a pain in the ass.
it, a lot of it is we they want to be, that one thing that's different.
Yep.
It's sometimes it's what makes the difference, whether it
Oh, big time.
floats down by the nose or falls
Yep.
down regular, sometimes just having that little bit of, you also think, I mean, we're all throwing the same stuff. You talk about Sankos and
Yep.
craws. These fish have seen it a million and
100
one
times. Oh
times
yeah.
in their life. You give it something a little bit, and they'll have that second of,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
is it real?" And you'll get like a reaction bite at
Yep.
best, you know?
Oh yeah, no, one of the baits one of the sneakiest baits that I found in a clearance bin at Dick's Sporting Goods was at the time it was a big bite baits. It was a coontail bait,
Mhm.
but Grande Bass makes the rattlesnake worm, which is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a ribbed centipede looking worm,
Yeah.
and I will throw those in place of like a Ned rig or a Senko some days because, like you said, sometimes, especially where you fish tournaments, because there's a good chance where you fish that tournament, there was probably a Wednesday nighter there and there was a Saturday tournament the weekend before. So, like,
Dude,
they've seen 150 black blue Senkos that week, so they're not going to bite it.
talking about Alabama again, man, I think that was one of the differences was having the scorpion on. Not a
Yep.
lot of people knew about that bait back then, and it was everybody
Right.
was out there throwing a chatterbait. I mean, the water looked like chocolate milk. There
Yeah.
wasn't much else you could throw besides
Right.
something giving off vibration, but it's just that little something different that clicked, and
Exactly.
it's crazy though to watch, from how they pour it to pick it to go through them all, pack them. It's a process,
I
and
can
you
imagine.
really don't think about it. I mean, you look at them in stores and you're like, $7 for these Senkos? Like, you
Yeah.
kidding me? Even the Yamamotos. But then you see the whole process. You're like, oh my god, these are only $7, like for all the time and everything you
Yep.
put into
Yep.
them.
Well, that's the problem too. Is they're kind of like they're in that they have to compete because they're not. I mean, they're big, but they're not Berkeley big. They're not
No, no,
Yamamoto big. So like
we're
they don't.
still we're still kind of a local company. I mean,
Right.
you go down south, not a lot of they're really good with their ads. You will see them on Facebook,
Yeah.
you will see them on Instagram, but as for like seeing them, they're not in a lot of stores. A lot of it's online, and
Yep.
they're not your Walmart every day you see. So
So
it's
that's
it's
actually kind of
different.
the like inside track though. Is like because they're not there. You know, 12-year-olds aren't throwing them all day long because they bought them at Walmart. So you don't have that. That
Mm-hmm.
it's the baits that like one of my favorite baits in the springtime, like early season springtime, is old school Mep spinners. Why? Because no one uses them anymore. So the bass aren't afraid of them because no one thinks to throw an inline Mep spinner. But
You almost see like baits make a comeback. Like,
yep,
dude, when the Whopper Plopper came out, it was the deal for
yeah,
like a
oh
year
yeah,
and a half, and then everybody was throwing it, and it kind of died off. And then people kind of quit throwing them because everybody was, and it almost like made a comeback that it
yep,
works again. And
yep.
it's weird some of the stuff you see like wrap around and come back after being like used so much.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many trends that people follow. A lot of it honestly comes down to like what wins the Bassmaster Classic ends up being like the bait that gets sold out that year, and then
Uh,
everybody switches to that mode, and then the thing that replaced
that
gets
jackhammer
forgotten.
fire craw the year Hank Cherry won it, dude. You couldn't find those things for
No,
months.
you still at times I still see guys in mid-July run into the like
Oh yeah.
we'll see them on the shelf, and they're like, oh, I gotta pick these up, and I'm like. I mean, yeah, but they're more of a springtime color. But
Dude, that thing was sold out through like October.
yeah,
It was
oh
like,
yeah,
this is insane. It's
oh yeah,
one of those deals when people started doing big on Megabass. Dude, those things were flying off the shelf at what, $25 a piece for a jerkbait?
that's the thing too. Those baits were insane. Like they don't have a bait under like $15. I don't think they sell anything that's less than like $15. Like
Their sleeper
maybe
deal.
there's some. Oh,
Sleeper deal
maybe
might be like 12,
true,
but
true, true. That
but
is
it
true.
they're dude, I mean, I always said I wasn't gonna get on the bandwagon, and then I threw a couple of their jerk baits, and it was all right. I kind of see why they're 25 instead of 7. I hate it. I hate every pickerel in the lake when I'm throwing them,
See,
but
that's the big problem, man. That's the problem is that's what makes if I knew that I was always going to get them back, it would be more likely to buy them. But it's like I get it though. I do. I can't. I mean, I have a couple. I have probably 4 or 5 sleepers in my box too, so I can't really say much because
it's the one thing I will say is I'll never get into the big swim bait game. Like I got some swim
finally,
baits. I got some.
finally somebody says that because I everybody's like, oh no, you got to try it, and I'm like,
I got
I just can't.
I got some. I mean, I got the S waivers. I got your $25 to $40 swim baits, but I ain't spending 100 something bucks on a bait that I don't trust myself not putting it into a tree. You know.
The amount of rage that I know I would create when I go to cast that and I hook in a
Mhm.
log and it doesn't come back,
So
it's not worth it. Like I would be so pissed and just devastated.
I can't remember who it was. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was one of the local guys who fishes tournaments. The first time I bought swim baits, bought one S waiver. She's like, all right, I can deal with like a $30 purchase,
Yeah.
whatever. I go out, third cast, get a 17 3/4, followed it, bomb it at the boat. I'm like, that's awesome. Very next cast, got it caught up in some rocks and current and snapped off, and it was gone in the river. And I remembered, like, the guy I was on the phone with was like, well, at least you got one. I'm like, I almost wish I didn't. Because now I know they work and I got to go buy
I
two
gotta replace
more.
it.
Where if I had just lost it, it would have been all right, whatever. I don't need these in my arsenal.
And
But,
that's a lesson you learn as a fisherman too. You never buy one.
oh, dude. And then the worst
You
thing
gotta
was,
buy two because you're gonna break them off.
like, you break it off. So you buy three more. And I think I went 3 months without ever getting another bite on them. I'm like, of course.
I
Of
can guarantee you
course.
that's actually the reason why I threw the one lipless I did in that Rhode Island tournament, because I had one of them and I'd never caught a fish on it. And that's the problem. You catch a fish on it, you'll never find that color again. That color
Nope.
is discontinued or it's sold out or that's the rule. It's just unfortunately that's how it works is you buy two of everything, but then you have two of everything and you have all these baits that they
I
might work.
think I think it was the Potomac River event. Uh, I was with a fellow Hookset Hoodlum member, Steve-O. We went into Bass Pro, and they had the color chatterbait I throw, which you don't usually find in Bass Pro. I'll never forget this dude laughing. I took the whole rung right
Yeah.
off into the bat. He's like, dude,
Yep.
that's like a lot. I'm like, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
buying them again this year.
Yep.
Like, that's it.
The problem is though, if he was in the Northeast, he should understand because chatterbaits and pike, man, they take those things with them more often than they just do. And the
I,
way they hit them is so violent that they break them off. Like I lose so many of them. I buy the regular, what is it, the original, the cheaper ones because
yeah,
of that. And I buy, like you said, I'll buy 3, 4 at a time because I know I'm gonna lose two.
so the difference I've found with the cheap ones compared to the jackhammer is well, you got to get 2 3 cranks in before you
Yep.
feel that, dude. That jackhammer's there immediately,
Yep.
right,
It is.
right up, vibrating, and
Yep.
it's definitely made a difference to the point I'm like, all right, I can spend the extra money
Yeah.
if it means I'm gonna get that good one up tight that wouldn't hear the vibration and stuff. But
Yeah. Have you tried the slobber knocker yet?
I have not. I have not.
So I've fished the thunder cricket, the slobber knocker, the all of them, and I will say the slobber knocker starts quick like the
Mm-hmm.
jackhammer. It fishes a little bit deeper, but the one thing I did notice about it is it doesn't have the hunting action
Okay.
because of the bent blade. The blade has like a bend on the end of it, so
Yeah.
it tracks more true. But the head design, what's good about those is you can actually fish those in wood. Because the way the head is, it actually, because the blade is part of the head, it's not in front of the head,
Yeah.
it'll hit wood and then it will come up because of the roundedness of the head. Unlike regular chatterbait will kind of roll over and then dig in. So they actually fish better through cover and they're
Huh.
not as expensive, but I've caught a lot of fish on them. I will say right now, and if Berkeley, if you want to sponsor me, I'm sorry, but the scented skirt is kind of bullshit because it's a moving bait, and I don't really see how that really does much for you. I think that's just an extra thing that maybe if you were jerking them instead of like fishing them, it might help if you're keeping it in one spot. But
So maybe yo-yoing. I actually
yeah,
I this time of year, chatterbait's still in my arsenal.
yeah,
Whether it's February or what, but you yo-yo that a lot. I'm just one of those guys. If it ain't broke, I'm not gonna fix it. And
yeah,
there's two baits I've probably won the most money off is that chatterbait with the fresh bait scorpion, and then
yeah.
drop shot with the helamite. So that whole jackhammer, I'm like, it's won me more
It
money
it
than
it,
anything else. I'm not
it
gonna
is what it
start
is. Yeah,
straying from it. It's
Yep.
definitely the confidence bait. So
Yep. All right, I've kept you for an hour and 14 minutes, so we can probably start to wrap it up here. Um, I
yeah,
definitely want to get talking again, though. We should definitely do this again sometime. Like I said, I'm just trying to bring on. I'm trying to stay. I have some guests coming on that are not local, but I actually have Bobby Roast Beef from Jigs and Bigs coming on next weekend.
nice,
But
nice.
but I'm trying to find guys, in the Northeast because I feel like we have a different perspective on like everybody thinks that their fisheries are different. So I'll throw that out there. Like everybody's like, oh, it's different in Florida, it's different in Texas. Yeah, it is. But I feel like up here there's less awareness because we don't have those bodies of water. So the anglers up here don't get the recognition. And not that I'm a huge channel that blows people up, but I'm trying to like bring the light up here. Like we do have hammers up here. We have guys
Well,
that can catch them, and it's
we've said it for years, dude. You look at the KBF. Look at everything down south. Every one of us northern guys down there. They come up here, you don't see half
yeah,
the names come
it's
up.
a different
You
world. And I think a lot of it is the way the fisheries lay out. Like you guys have, there's a lot of diversity. Like I can go to a body of water that has grass on one side, rock on the other side, ledges in the middle, like it has every possible scenario
Yeah,
where there's a lot of those places in the south where like they don't even know how to fish certain conditions because they've never seen it.
and that's what it is. We get all four seasons. For example, not this year, but you go to Florida last year. Dude, tournament day, it was 28 degrees in Florida.
Yep.
It's the coldest
Yep.
it's been in like over 7 years. You
Yep.
watched all the guys in the north go, all right, this
Yeah.
ain't no different than fishing a fall morning, and
Those
in
dudes are fishing in those dudes are
Massachusetts.
fishing in shorts because they left fucking -20.
Oh yeah.
It's like it feels
Well,
like a summer day to us, but
it was actually funny. I had that conversation at the boat ramp. I mean, dude, I'm a little guy. I'm like 135, 140, and I'm out there shivering. And one of the dudes from down there is like, "Aren't you from up north? Shouldn't you be used to this?" I'm like, "Listen, dude, cold is still cold.
cold is
Just
cold.
because
Yeah.
we live in it doesn't mean like,
Yeah.
all right, it is what it is. It's still cold." But
Yeah. That's
you
funny.
watched that tournament, a lot of the guys that did well were all people who have fished in 28 degrees multiple times
Yeah.
and dealt with, all right, I know they're going to be locked up and not moving and
Yeah,
stuff like
they're
that.
used to dealing with that lethargic nature. It's funny because, like you said, I think honestly it's kayaking too. Like again, I probably made a lot of enemies already talking on the internet, and I'm not even that big, but like I think kayak anglers have an advantage over boat anglers because we have to pick our spots. Because you
we
have to, it's about the energy. It's about how long does it take me to get to this spot. So I have to be able to pick apart an area instead of being in like cast. Oh fuck, there's no fish here. Go
yeah,
across the lake.
it's 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 one of those things. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like you got to look for the spot inside a spot when you're
Exactly.
breaking down
Yep.
lakes. It's you got to almost do it by like how I try and do it is I'll take like 3 mile sections, break them down, look for the spots inside a
Yep.
spot, and then all right, where do I have the best shot at? If stuff goes wrong, I have a backup plan. I'm
Yep.
not just running the same thing. And
Yep.
it's tough, but I do a couple of big boat tournaments with another fresh baits pro staff. I co-angle, and it's definitely different when we get on the boat and start talking strategy. And you can tell, one's used to running the whole lake, and one's used to, well,
Yep.
I'm breaking this down, and
Yep. I know I've definitely been fishing in my kayak, and I have a boat too, so I do both. Like I don't fish boat tournaments, but like
mm-hmm.
I've literally been fishing a kayak and been like at the mouth of a river, fishing the mouth of a river, and then I'll drift down a little bit. Boat will come up, and he'll fish the mouth of the river. He'll pull two rods out, boom, boom, rods up, trolling motor up, fly across the lake,
Oh
and
yeah,
then I'll go around the point, and he's back again. Two different rods, different point, but he's within 40 yards of me again. 3 rods. Like it's like I don't even know why he bothers to put his trolling motor down because he literally casts 4 times. It's like he's clearly running a pattern and trying to find where the fish are, but I'm like, dude, you literally have spent 2.5 hours of a 5-hour window fucking driving back and forth from here to there. But
I
that's how big boat works.
I do not think I'd do good in the
I
big
don't think
boat world. My ADHD and everything else, dude,
oh,
I got enough problems trying to figure out where I'm moving within a
right,
3 mile span, let alone
right.
you give me a whole lake, man. I'll
And
start.
that's how I do it with kayaks is like you said, I take Google Earth. I literally take Google Earth, I take a screenshot of it, and I
Mhm.
draw myself like a fucking roadmap. Like, okay, I'm gonna start at this point because if I'm at this point, I can then shoot over to here very easily and I can fish the deep on the way there. Like whereas like I feel like with a bass boat, I would just end up even with a bass boat, a lot of times I find myself spending too much time on like I'll be there, I'll be fishing a piece of structure for an hour and a half, and then I'm like, oh, I probably should have fucking moved by now, but I'm here, so
It's definitely a whole different ball game. When I started helping Joe and co-angling, it was like, dude, I am so out of my element. There is way too many options for me. I
yeah,
just
it's
need
just
to focus in and
yep,
head down and grind it type of guy, you know.
absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like you're a lot like me. But yeah, we should definitely I'll definitely have you on again. Like I said, I'm booking people up, but I mean, obviously this winter, this is what I'm trying to do it because I know once tournament season hits, it's a lot harder to book everybody because, like you said, you got between roads and travel and all that shit. But we
Chronic
definitely should meet up
trip,
and fish when you're not
local.
doing a tournament too, for sure.
Yeah, man, definitely, definitely. Even if you want to meet up for like a chronic trips, jigs and bigs kind of multi-species thing,
Should do
I'd
that.
be
That'd be
about
fun.
that too. You know, I heard
Yeah,
you guys
that's
got some walleyes up there.
yeah, we so there's a place there's actually well I mean Champlain obviously it's got water it's Champlain, but
Yeah.
there's actually a reservoir up here called Chittenden Reservoir. It's actually a walleye preserve, I guess is what they call it.
Hmm.
So the fishing game is actually trying to bring walleyes back
Okay.
and they use this body of water as like a preserve basically. So they have a slot limit. So it's like a
Okay.
specific slot limit. You can only keep one and you can only get one if it's in this like it's like 17 to 20. Like that's it. Like there's no
Really?
you can't keep anything smaller, you can't keep anything bigger. It's just that. But they stock it and they're actually trying to grow the population in there. What's cool about that fishery is not only do they have the walleye, but you've got like fucking huge perch, which is why they put the walleye in there
Yeah.
because they can eat the perch. They have smallmouth, largemouth in there as well.
Ooh.
So you have all three in this one body of water. I think there might even be trout in there. I'm not sure because there's a lot of tributaries that feed into it. So there's probably brook trout and stuff like that. But
I've always wanted a walleye, man. I mean, especially watching the ice fishing stuff. And
yeah,
I this winter's been weird, but usually we're
right.
out on the ice and stuff. And I've always wanted one of them. They're a bucket list fish. It's a weird bucket list fish. Most people are like peacock bass and tarpon. I'm like, I just want a
Yeah.
walleye, man.
Yeah, yeah, peacocks are cool for sure, but to be honest, like yeah, I the walleye, so it's interesting because it's like a seasonal thing too though. Like it's really hard to catch them in the summertime. Like you got to catch those in the cold water. Like they're not you can catch them, but they're
It's
more likely to bite during certain they're like any other species of fish. They
yeah,
have their temperature ranges, but
yeah. We'll definitely be in touch about that because you
yeah,
get
so
me
my
on
plan
walleye, you
was
might see them buck fever come out.
yeah, dude, I got some buddies that catch them on there, and I honestly want to try to get some on film. So we should. I'll talk to my buddy when he goes and looks for them, because he does it like, and all you do to fish for them up here is like basically dragging like a Rapala.
I
It's
was about
basically
to say,
jerkbait,
like, I couldn't imagine them not eating a drop shot and stuff. You
drop
know,
shot. They say drop shot. A lot of guys literally take regular like old school Rapala stick bait, like fucking jerk bait style, and they'll throw split shots on their line to get them down deeper. and then just kind of pull, because you get like some of those don't dive just enough, but you can get the right
Yeah.
colors. So it's like a redneck trolling. I've actually literally trolled them with those mini dipsy divers too with my bait casters, just to
Okay.
get them down a little deeper.
Yeah, I've
But yeah,
seen guys put wire on the top of the front
yep,
hook and whatnot. There's some
yeah.
tricks to get stuff
But
down
with a
there.
pedal drive, it's pretty easy because you just throw a couple off the side and just
Oh
putt
yeah,
around and
dude.
ride
Wait,
around in a circle.
wait till you get a motor. It's even easier.
I'm putting a cheap motor on this year. It's just a regular Minn Kota, like regular style one. I would love an XI3, but that's not in the. I don't even have spot lock on my bass boat, so putting it on my kayak seems like a little bit of an unnecessary upgrade right now. I would
It's
love the Kayak XI3 though. That thing
it's a
looks
game
awesome.
changer for sure, but it also changes a lot of how you fish. I find
Yeah, I can
myself
imagine.
fishing off the back of the boat more than I ever have in my life, fishing off the
Okay.
back of the kayak with the spot lock and stuff. But it was definitely key. I mean, you get into bed fishing and stuff,
Yeah.
being able to spot lock and stand up and
Well, I
it,
could just see like flipping, dude. Like even with
yeah.
a pedal drive, you still got to throw an anchor down if you want to stay on cover, because
Hmm.
otherwise you're just gonna get pulled away every time. Whereas if you could just pull up on cover and just hit that button, then I don't have to. Because that's the biggest problem I have is always trying to figure out. It's always okay. There's this pad field in front of me or this grass patch in front of me. But where do I got to throw my anchor and what angle do I got to put my anchor at so that I can stay where I want to hit my cast?
Yeah,
Whereas if I could just go beep and let that thing engage and then I'm there, that would be totally different ball game for sure.
it's crazy how far they've come with it. I mean, you can hook them up to finders and
Yep.
pre-record routes and whatnot. I'm not into it that far, but
Oh,
just having the spot lock is, and I mean having the head to on it. Dude, you wouldn't believe like how many lakes I fished my whole life. I've been around with a fish finder and all that, and then you get the motor and you're standing and you're running through like the middle of the lake and oh my god, there's a tree here. Like you can
yep,
see it. And you're like, dude,
yep,
I must have missed this thing by 2 feet at least 10 times
yep,
with my fish
yep.
finder. But just being able to stand up and see is a game changer.
It's impressive. See, I'm still iffy on standing because I'm like 300 pounds and I'm not as
It's a
coordinated
little
as, so I have a
different.
lot of gravity up
Yeah,
high, and it's not even that I'm worried about. I'm not even worried about going in the water. Honestly, I can swim. I'm
yeah.
worried about the $1,000 worth of shit that's behind me that's gonna end up in the lake if I dump all my rods and all my tackle and
I'm definitely for lack of better words, ballsier than most. I mean bed fishing, I'm up on my seat, standing and
oh
whatnot.
really? Fuck
Oh yeah.
that.
Like I said, I'm
Fuck that.
135 pounds. I was a wrestler. My balance is good. I'm up on the nose of the kayak. I'm up on the
No
seat.
way.
I could do cartwheels on mine and
Oh
not
really?
have
Yeah,
any issues.
I've got a buddy that has a paddle version of my old town, and that dude never really sits down. He uses his fucking oar like a, and he
Oh,
just flies around, man. With the
I
drive, it's even like with the XI3, you're just like,
Dude, I've probably been standing for some stuff I shouldn't have been,
yeah,
but yeah, I've made full runs. Standing up 4.5 miles an hour. I've almost gone in the drink a couple of times.
wow, that'd
Uh,
be crazy.
dude, Charles River this past year, another one I grew up fishing my whole life. I've ran the stretch of river a million times and never had an issue. And because it was so low, I mean, I was doing like 5.5, almost 6 with current and hit a rock I've never hit in a million times because the water was just so low. And
Right.
I wish I had it on video. I wound up hanging on the motor like a monkey. It was, dude, I mean,
Oh
it hit,
man.
the motor dead stopped. I was standing. I flew,
Oh
kind
man.
of grabbed the head of the motor and like, I mean, knees were on it, chest was on it, and then
Oh,
had to try and like get back, knock the wind out of you, and I tripped over my fish finder trying to get back because of where that was.
oh,
Wound up like back into the seat. I'm like, oh my god! But
well,
everybody with a motor knows that noise. I know I've had been on the phone with John Ferreira. New Year's Eve, I was out fishing, running a place, and talking to him, and all of a sudden wasn't paying attention, got a little bit too shallow, and hit. And he
yep.
heard like the phone fumble and everything. And he's like, "Are you in the drink? I know you just hit something. I heard the motor." I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm still in the boat.
Yep.
I'm still in the boat."
That's funny. Yeah, that's crazy. See, that's the game that I think I'll get into. To be honest, that's kind of my goal is completely like pipe dream, but like if I win a couple tournaments, I want to invest that money back into getting a, because like I said, I want to get spot lock on my boat. I have, it's got a regular 48-pound thrust trolling motor on my, I have a 18-foot tracker, so it's not like it's good enough. I
Yeah,
want to get spot lock on my bass boat, but to be honest, I'm at the point now where I bought a fish finder for my kayak because I do kayak tournaments.
yeah.
I'm probably going to end up with spot lock on my kayak before I end up with spot lock on my bass boat. It's
I can
more
tell you it's
likely.
probably a lot cheaper to put it in your kayak
Yeah.
than it is to put
Yeah.
it in the bass boat for
Yeah,
sure.
that XI3 for the kayak isn't that bad a price really for what it is. I mean, it's literally the same thing as on the bass boat, it's just a smaller shaft basically, right?
Um, I don't know. I bought mine secondhand. I
Gotcha.
I bought mine kind of as a whole setup. Um,
Oh, okay.
so John wound up moving to the Jackson Take Two,
Okay.
and me and him just talked, and we wound up being like, well, all right, how much for the motor and the kayak? And he wound up
Gotcha.
getting the 24-volt motor for his new kayak. So I kind of got a bargain deal on the kayak and the motor.
I'm just trying to how fucking fast does that 24 volt go? Because that's got to be
It's not much faster. Um, they're only doing like a mile and a half more than us,
okay.
mile. But where it comes into play is, dude, I've watched those guys motor through pad fields and no issues at all.
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
like stuff you'd hit in the
Yeah.
XI3 and your motor would turn
Yeah. You're
on,
just
and
done.
you,
Yeah.
dude, they're just right through it, no issues.
I call that making salad. I do that with my bass boat one sometimes. I just like, you're just like churning shit up as you're going through it. That's
Oh,
crazy.
dude, it's insane. Some of the places I've been able to see them drive through. I mean, it is faster, but
It's more
I'm sure
power. It's more torque than speed. That makes sense.
that would be what I would want out of it, is and
Yeah. I bet it's probably better. Like if you get in a heavy current, it's probably more likely to keep you. Because I know, like, I mean, spot people that don't know what spot lock is, basically you set a button, it locks in your GPS coordinates, and it tries to keep you in that
Mhm.
area. It's not an exact spot. It's a radius around that spot that it tries to keep you in. So if
So
you got that extra poundage, it's gonna keep you
it
there easier.
actually works better in higher wind.
Oh,
Like,
really?
everybody would think spot lock works better when there's not a lot of wind. No. The heavier the wind is, the easier it's going to be for that motor to stay in one spot.
Really?
Because when it has like no wind, it's now dealing with the slight wind coming, the pull off your bait, and it's trying to fight
Oh,
multiple directions, to where if you got a good wind, that's what it's fighting. That's
yeah.
what
It's
you're
always gonna head
fishing.
into the wind, and yeah, that makes
Yep.
sense.
Yep. So that blew my mind when I went to it. I was thinking, it'd be
It
harder.
makes sense that you explain it, but I never would have thought that, honestly. I would have thought the opposite. It would make more sense that
Hmm. I mean, there's definitely that fine line of too much that it's hard. I figured that one out at Winnipesaukee, fishing some
yeah.
rough waves. Once the motor starts coming out of the water, it's aggressive, because it'll come out and you'll like move back, and then it'll dip back in and try and throw you forward when you're
Gotcha.
hitting the next wave. But
And from what you told me, you're standing the whole time doing the buck and bronco ride while you're trying to do that.
that one I was definitely not.
Okay,
that
fair
one
enough.
that one was rough enough. I was like, I'm scared and I'm gonna sit.
Yeah,
It was really one spot there. It basically went from like 30 feet to 3, and the boats were waking by.
gotcha.
And for those of you that don't know, more than 50% of a wave is underwater. So when
Right.
it hits those banks, it rolls up and gets bigger. And yeah, that spot there was no standing. You would be
Yeah,
swimming.
yeah. That's I fished some nasty waters, but not. My dad one day on Lake Ontario saw a guy in an old town just like mine trolling for salmon at Oswego Landing.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I was like, in 4 or 5 foot rollers, and I was like, I don't know. I'm brave, but and the thing is, again, it's not even about ending up in the water. It's a financial thing for me. It's like if I
yeah,
flip this thing, I'm gonna lose my fish finder because it's probably gonna short the shit out of that thing submerging it. I'm gonna lose all my tackle. I'm gonna probably
eight
lose at least a bunch
rods,
of rods. Like
reels. Yup.
I'm gonna have to like rebuy all of my gear at this point. It's not
Yeah.
even the concern of going swimming. I'll figure that part out, but
Dude, I can't tell you how many rods I've just lost off the deck. Like, let
yep,
alone,
yep.
you get
I
into
almost I javelin casted one time. Fucking jig rod. I went back too far with the jig,
oh
hooked it
yeah,
into my rod, and I went like this, and I ended up catching it because I just saw this thing come by, and then my brain was just like, "That's money," and I caught it, but it literally like casted my own rod out of my rod holder behind me because
dude.
I
When I
didn't
first
hook it.
got the XI3, I I mean the first month I owned it, I probably broke 4 rods off it because you're not used to having it, and you're trying to
Yep,
skip up under brush, and
yep,
the way your kayak's running the bank, it's like out of your peripheral, but
yep.
right in that skip ring. Dude, I must have snapped 4 rods easily in the first month. Like,
That's why I was wondering when you said you had a 9 inch because I have mine on the side on the railing on the side because it's a smaller fish finder, and even that
mhm.
little 6 inch one, I wrapped it, trying to
Oh,
skip under a rock or something or under a log. So like I could imagine, like I'm envisioning a 9 inch. I'm like in my mind, I'm like, dude, he's got a 9 inch. He must have like so many broken rod tips from trying to like
so maybe
underhand cast.
that's the thing for me is the motor's higher up than the
Yep.
finder. So if I'm gonna crack anything, I'm
It's gonna
cracking
be
the
that
motor
motor. It's gonna
first.
be that motor.
Oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've definitely had to figure that one out. How
I'm
to
gonna have
skip different.
I'm gonna have to remember that because yeah, that is a good point. You don't think about that, but yeah, it's funny because you don't realize where your rod ends up when you're casting because you're
No,
just looking at the spot and you're doing the motion to get it there. But I've
dude.
watched videos before, like I've literally watched my own footage and watched my bait like whip around and just barely miss my rod. I actually hit
Oh
my own
yeah,
fish finder in my boat one day, like smoked my fish finder with jig one day.
dude. I've had some where like I'm doing overhead casts, like it should be nothing behind me. And you hear it crank your 6 rods behind you, and it's like,
Yep.
how did I even do that? Like,
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when you start using those like more lighter action rods too, because they get that wicked fucking
ugh,
flex to them.
dude, a jerk bait on the spinning rod. I can't tell you how many times I've racked eyelids behind me and
Yeah,
whatnot trying to cast those things. But
I can imagine. But yeah, I'm gonna probably wrap it up right here. I don't think we have anybody viewing right now, so I guess I can't ask for any final questions. But we should definitely talk. Hit me up on Instagram. I'll probably just text you my cell phone number too, because I know Instagram's kind of like a. I feel like sometimes I message people and it like doesn't get to them for like 2 weeks, because I know I've definitely talked to people and then like it.
it's
I don't think it works the way I think it does, honestly.
it's tough when you get into like the when you make like a professional account on
Right.
Instagram.
Yep.
Because, like, you get people who will just meet you and you'll throw them in, like, general instead of
Yep.
primary. And then you wind up talking to them a lot, but you're not getting the notifications through the general, and
Gotcha.
it's like, oh, I gotta remember to put them back to primary so that I get the
Gotcha.
notification every time.
Yeah, I haven't done the whole professional thing. Mine's just still a personal one. That's why that
It's
makes sense.
it becomes a little bit more of a pain once you make the switch over.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I know I was messaging like Becca from Fishing with Becca. I met her at the show too. She was up there with Bobby, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, because actually that walleye place I was talking about, and honestly, dude, if you don't have a tournament that weekend, you should come do this. So the plan is Bobby and if Becca's available that weekend, we're gonna do a camp out there. So it's all state land around this reservoir. It's all state park.
Okay.
So the plan is to go in and you can primitive camp with tents anywhere on the perimeter of the lake because it's national forest. It's the Green Mountain Forest is what it is, the Green Mountains or whatever.
Okay.
So the plan is to go in on like I'm actually probably gonna, to be honest, go up there Friday night and because it's like a first come first serve to get all the good spots. So I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna do a half day at work, go up there Friday and just set a tent up. I'm not even gonna stay. I'm just gonna go home, but
Yeah.
then that way we claim that area. But there's literally the access. It has a full boat ramp and everything. People launch like pontoon boats and everything. My plan is to go out and about, I don't know, 75 yards off the boat ramp, there's a point and it's a rocky point that you can camp on. So my
Okay.
plan is to set everybody up there and then just fish it all weekend until we go home.
Dude, I'd definitely be down if I don't have a tournament. That's
So
that's my idea of a fun weekend camping.
yeah, and that's the plan is just to do that. It's this Vermont has weird rules. Like you can't sleep in boat ramps here. It's not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
They consider it day use only, but you can night fish in Vermont. There's no night fishing laws here.
It's
So like you can't
weird.
sleep there, but you can park there. You can overnight camp anywhere in the vicinity, just not in the boat ramp.
Hmm.
So 75 yards from the boat ramp, I'm camping perfectly legal, but if I were to park in the boat ramp and sleep in my truck, I can get a fine. So
That's
basically, we just do that because worst case scenario, I can always run back to my truck. It's not that far. And like I said, there's walleye, smallmouth. Now, there isn't like monster smallmouth, but there's definitely like 1 2 pounders and a lot of them because no one really fishes for bass in there. And actually, for a while, my PB bass I caught there, I caught a 5 pound largemouth in there.
okay.
So like, there's good sized largemouth. It's what it is because it's a reservoir, but there's a lot of tributary creeks and streams.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of variety of species because they just come from the streams and end up in there.
That's my bread and butter right there. I love stream and river fishing, so
So and
that's
yeah, it's kind of a cool place because it's got along one side of it's really deep where there used to be a dam.
mm-hmm.
The dam is still there.
Okay.
So like you'll drive, it's actually really fucking freaky when you run over it with your fish finder because you're like 60 feet, 60 feet, 10 feet. And you're like, what the? Like, it's just like
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
fish finder, it's like a straight wall. And you're like, what the fuck is this?
yeah.
And then you're like 4 feet and it's like 60 feet. And you're like, what? Like, once you drive over it, you can map it and you go, oh, this is clearly
A
where
damn,
the
yeah,
old
yeah.
dam wall was. But it's got like shallow bays and then grass and then there's places where there's rock and it's kind of like a little bit of everything. So my plan is to try to get a bunch of people together. I'm going to bring GoPros, just record it all and make as much footage as I can over the weekend. And that's actually a dream I've had to do it because I think it would be fun.
Yeah.
I just can't find anybody that wants to throw a tent and a kayak and basically primitive camp and fish all weekend because most people I know aren't that hardcore about it. So I definitely will be inviting you. And like I said, Bobby Roast Beef wants to come. For those of you who don't know who Bobby Roast Beef is, he's the host of Jigs and Bigs podcast. Becca from Fishing with Becca, I had mentioned it to her, and if she doesn't have any thing going on that weekend, because that's her bread and butter too. Like that's
Yeah,
her
her,
entire
Todd,
channel is about that.
yeah, Noel Roth. They're big on that truck camping stuff. Yep.
So that's my plan, man. So if you want to be involved in that, I will keep you in the loop on that for sure. Because and honestly, it's not a set date. So until we set a date, we can probably work around. Once you get your tournament schedule, we can honestly look at that because that's the
Tournament
beauty of it. There's
schedules
no
are
fees.
already out, so just let me know
Okay.
and I'll let you
Awesome.
know what days I have available and whatnot.
Perfect.
But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I'll bring you up some of them fresh baits too. You can try those.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna have to go online right now and
So I'm gonna
use some of the bonus
say
money.
for anybody who did hear me talk about them and is interested, if you go to my Instagram page, which my name is Shags29, CHAGS29, there is a link on my Instagram that if you go through that link, you'll automatically get my 15% off code.
I will put that down in the show notes, guys. So you'll see that in the comment section. I will put his Instagram name down there. Follow him on Instagram and use that code and get some baits. I'm probably gonna end up buying some of them scorpions because I want to check that stuff out. I want to see what those are about.
Dude, they're money. They're money.
Not to
The
try them.
amount of places you can fish them, you can make them weedless if you take the tail and connect it to the end.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I guarantee bass haven't seen them here because
I
Vermont's more trout. Believe it or not, as much as everybody
mhm.
knows us for bass fishing on Champlain, it's a trout state, heavy
Yeah,
trout and fly fishing. So there's a lot of places that I go. There's another place you should come up to. Is there's a place in Killington that it doesn't have very many fish, but they increased the limit to 5 because there's so many fucking bass in there
yeah.
and they're like 17 and a half inch clones. I actually, there's so many fish in there. Just to put it this way, there's so many fish in there. I caught 2 fish on one Berkeley war pig in one cast.
Is it like 20 minutes outside of Killington?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
my sister went to Castleton.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
know that area pretty well.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
yeah. So
sure I
that
know where
that
you're talking
that that little pond, dude, you can't put a big boat in it because it's too shallow. The access is too shallow,
about.
and you can go have a 15, 20 fish day there with a lipless and a square bill,
Yeah,
just fucking cranking fish in. It's so
I'm
much
pretty
fun.
sure I know the place you're talking about because when me and my dad would go up there to see my sister in college, we'd always sneak away for a day. All right, let's go fishing. Where can
Yep.
we hit? You know,
Yeah,
but
that place is awesome.
we're
So,
definitely doing some fishing in Vermont this
oh,
year.
hit me up. Like I said, I'm gonna DM you on Instagram my cell phone number. That way you can hit me up and we will do that. So stay tuned for content, guys. That's the only rule I have when I go fish on people is if you don't want to be on camera, let me know so I can blur you. But you're gonna be on video either way. So
Sounds good.
awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. And I do port this to a podcast too, so it's gonna be on Spotify as well as my YouTube channel.
All right.
So if you have anybody that you want to listen to it or you want to let Fresh Baits know that you definitely rep them perfectly throughout the entire show, they can give a listen too. But yeah, I want to thank you for coming along and we're going to end it right here. So thanks, guys.
Later.